Okay, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. It's Tuesday, November 29th. Joined by the Honorable Councilmember Jose Bizarre, and I'm not sure we're going to have Councilmember Krikorian. Nope? Okay. Alrighty. It looks like a healthy agenda. I don't want to jinx this, but we do have several items that we can go through. And the ones that have cards are items number 1, item 2. We have 1 on item 3, and if my colleague agrees, that can move on consent. That's Mr. Ron Miller. We're going to move this to consent. If he agrees, do you still feel compelled to speak? Okay. So you would like to speak, Mr. Miller? You do want to speak? Okay, so we'll call that special. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Okay. So 1, 2, and 3 are special. 4, we have cards on 4 as well. That's all also being considered for all the items on 4, they're all in support. The consent would be supporting your position on item 4. Are you folks still feel compelled to speak? Okay, so item 4 will move on consent. Very wise people. Very, very strategic, very smart. And so 4 we can move on consent if you're okay, Councilman. So 4 is done. 5, we can move on 5 and 6. No cards on 6, no cards on 7. Well, yes, we do. Antonio Ramirez. Antonio, you here? It doesn't say whether you support this or not. Do you support? Okay. We'll call 7 special. Number 8, 9.
So 5 and 6 were approved, Councilman?
If we can move on consent on those? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. 7 we'll call special. Number 8 and 9. See no cards, move those on consent?
Yes.
All right, I'm getting some traction here. Number 10 is special. And number 11 is very special. That's a big stack. And we do have public comment as well. And we do have our director with us, and perhaps he'd like to share a few thoughts and messages.
Good afternoon, council members, and thank you for your attention to this committee. I know you had a long day in City Council, and we appreciate your being here. A few things to report. The department's been busy moving forward on our policy work program. On December 8th, the Hollywood Community Plan will be before the City Planning Commission. This is the first of 7 community plans we've been working on for a number of years. We're really excited to see the plan come for a vote before the Planning Commission, and we're excited to move forward with all the outreach and all the stakeholders we've been working with for a number of years to see that plan making its way to the City Council. So we're happy to we have released our staff report on that, and we'll be meeting with various stakeholders between now and the time it goes to City Council. And so far it's been very well received, and there are a number of people excited to see this move forward, and it's a good day for Hollywood. So we'll be available to answer any questions for your offices, if you may get any. And our staff's been really doing a good job in terms of making sure to get the report out in a timely fashion to give our neighborhood councils an opportunity to review it prior to going to the Planning Commission. So I'd like to applaud our staff who spent a lot of time working after hours to make sure that we got the plan out, but also address a lot of the comments we heard during public comment. In addition, we've been working on our mobility element of the general plan, utilizing a lot more web-based outreach approach. We've been working with a company named MindMixer to get kind of an online voting of different ideas where positive comments come to the forefront. You're not really able to necessarily tear down somebody else's comment, but you can build upon it, add your own comments, and it's a really good way to reach out to a whole other generation of people that care about Los Angeles that normally we don't engage through our normal public processes. So we're using this as not only an experiment, but kind of a pilot program to try and broaden our outreach methods, being a little more cost effective, but also engaging people without having to necessarily make the trip down to City Hall to talk about some of the policy areas we're working on, especially around transportation and mobility issues. So we'll give you some updates on how that's going and bring you some information on the different web access for your constituents. Some other items, our case processing section is doing well. We've reduced the backlog in our zoning administrator's office rather significantly in the time it takes to go to a public hearing. A lot of that's due to the hard work of our staff, but also the restructuring of the department. So we're looking at now kind of the cases coming in and how we can utilize staff to kind of get out some of the older cases that we have to help kind of move the economy forward, but also help with jobs and job creation in Los Angeles. That concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Just in terms of the webcam, and you called it the WebAx?
MindMixer, which is a company that's web-based, kind of a polling. It's more of almost like a web interface that you can log into to post your ideas, vote on other ideas, comment on people's ideas, and then we generate a series of questions and ideas and kind of a visioning exercise through that medium. So it's basically a web access to get information out to people, but also to hear comments on proposed ideas or ideas they may have in terms of traffic, congestion, mobility.
And my assumptions are that, given the diversity of the city, there are places that don't have access to the technology for all the reasons we know. Are we folding in libraries or other venues that allows, let's say, the seniors who may not be versed in using websites and or folks who don't speak English? I mean,
Correct.
Have we thought about that?
Yes, definitely. All of our materials are bilingual, and we have a number of staff working on this that have bilingual experience. But we're also making sure that this is one of many tools to kind of amplify our outreach. So our traditional public workshops, small focus groups, things like that, where we can go out to stakeholders, meet people at churches, even your local Starbucks, for example. We've had experiences holding meetings there just to get people involved. So this is just kind of complementing our already aggressive outreach to try and reach people that are more comfortable in that kind of environment.
Great, great. Well, congratulations. I think part of the process as we go through these hearings, a question that is asked is how many people attended the meeting, how many people actually participated. So my assumptions are that in these web-type environments that we could document who was actually participating and how many.
Yeah, and what's nice about this forum is it's not just like a blog where it can be anonymous and that you actually have to provide some basic information to participate, so that there is a little bit more accountability in terms of the statements people make, and it tends to have a lot more credibility than you may see in a typical, let's just say a typical blog page that you may get from a news service.
Great.
So we're excited to work with MindMixer on this.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for your hard work, and the staff for hanging in there, and given all the challenges we face, they continue to work hard, so I want to be very thankful for that. Well, folks, as we come forward to the next set of phase of this committee is we'll be asking you to come to the microphone. We're going to have the staff present the report first. Once they present the report, I'll ask for public comment. When you do come forward, you come to the microphone, try to speak into it, because the acoustics are terrible here. And second, if you have a very eloquent letter, keep in mind the clock. Sometimes we get caught up in the moment of reading every word, and then you run out of time. So if you can get your punchline and get to the specific point, please do so. And if you find yourself at the microphone and realize that the previous speaker already said what you wanted, you can say, I agree with the previous speaker, and give us anything new and or different. So Roberto, let's start. Item 1.
Item 1, council members, is a planning department report. It's relative to 2 approaches to develop a ridgeline protection ordinance in the city.
Thank you, Roberto. Sir.
Good afternoon. Eric Lopez, City Planning. Coming here to present to you the report regarding the council motion regarding ridgeline protection for the city of Los Angeles. A little bit of background. Ridgeline protection is not anything necessarily new to this city. We have a few special overlays and specific plans and Q and D limitations that sort of have done this before, but only for select areas. So what this proposal was for us to look into another method for it to be done on a more citywide basis. We had actually studied some of these approaches for the baseline Hillside Ordinance, which was adopted by the council and has been in place since May. Excuse me. The City Planning Commission had also expressed an interest in the possibility of having a ridgeline protection ordinance, so want to make sure that we touch base on the recommendation that we have here, which is essentially to move forward with the work program that we established here. Essentially, the work program involves the creation of a citywide ridgeline map that would be amended on a community plan by community plan basis, and the project would also develop ridgeline protection regulations as a part of it. Essentially, there's 2 general ways from our experience and our research to deal with ridgeline protection, which is one is to either keep buildings off of ridgelines, or the other is to keep them low-rise. So in terms of the development of the actual language, it's not too tricky. The hard part becomes basically figuring out where these protections and what level of protection to apply on a citywide basis. So for us, what we recommend is have this particular effort be rolled into the community plan program, unless new resources come up, which doesn't necessarily, these days not necessarily available for us. But if we get this project done, essentially establishing the citywide regulations, but applying them or implementing them through the plan process is probably the most cost-effective way to get something like this done. As part of the work program that we propose in the report, we identify the possibility of a pilot program where we would identify a particular community plan area to essentially test out how this would work in the real world. And so theoretically, when we adopt the map, there'll be a community plan area that would be designated with these levels of protection. The work program is a 2-year work program, and we included a fiscal impact analysis for you guys to consider. Our recommendation is that if this is a priority for the City Council in terms of something they'd like to see done, that essentially funding be acquired for it, and we can begin work as soon as those resources become available. Any questions?
Yeah, I love it when staff can say "you guys." It means we're getting very comfortable here.
I feel very comfortable with
It's all right. One is that we're essentially adding an element to the community plan, correct? That's going to give us some analysis on protecting the ridgelines.
Yeah, essentially, given the resources we have now, everyone is pretty much accounted for or spoken for, and the only way we could essentially take care of something this neighborhood specific is through the community plan process, is a conversation that would take place during that time.
So when Councilman Bergson hears about this, he's going to say, what? We left that out? Is that what's going to... Well, he put a lot of time into this, didn't he? He put a lot of time into this work, so... Yes, you did, right? How many years, Charlie?
Roush, Planning Department staff. He put in about 6 years on it specifically. We had a lot of information in the Porter Ranch specific plan on it, and we also did it with designated ridge lines in the Canoga Park Woodland Hills plan about 15 years ago.
Yeah, I know, living through that, but I'm glad you're on top of this, and hopefully this will be covering most of the issues on those concerns. Would that be maybe yes, maybe no?
That would be our primary objective.
All right, sounds good. Well, let's get the staff, thank you again, sir, and let's get the cards going. We have with us Donald Lowe's, I believe, Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad to be here. I was here with Charlie 7 years ago when we started.
Okay, all right. So you
Glad
have
to
the
be here
memories.
again, and we're glad to encourage the continuation of the broader program that.
Can you put the microphone right in front of you so we can hear you better? There you go.
Beg your pardon?
Good.
We want to just connect with the Northeast program, what's been done at CD2, the county and Malibu, and bring this unique asset of the city, the Santa Monica Mountains, into the protection that your foresight has brought us. We'd like to accelerate the work program. And we're glad to see that the staff has done so much of the work already. We want to get it accelerated. We encourage you to get it funded. There's obviously some ways to do it. We think this is about the biggest bang for the buck you can get for this program, and we think, and we would like to volunteer to the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council, and the Benedict County Association would be part of the pilot program. We'd like to volunteer for that pilot program because the Hillside, the baseline ordinance is involved. We've already worked in the on the retaining wall ordinance. We've been through all of this, and we think we can help accelerate this. And with the dollars that would be allocated to this, could help build a base that would very much leverage anything else that would have to go in any of the other community plans, which we wouldn't need to be in at that point. A bit of micromanagement along with our suggestions. We'd like to encourage the department to keep Eric happy and see that he's here, and if possible, get Jennifer drive her back because she's done so much of much of the hard work on this. We think she could really get the map going quickly, and we're glad that you're working on it and thinking about it as much as we have been.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Stephen Twining. Stephen C. Twining.
Good morning or afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate the two of you for supporting the Northeast Zone change and the ridgeline protection that it offers. Our neighborhood, the Bel Air Beverly Crest Community Plan, we should be the pilot program for this program. We'd save a lot of money for the city in that our community plan would not have to be revised in the near future. Eric, I also would like to thank Eric. Has been fabulous in his work on the baseline Hillside Ordinance that we all supported tremendously. And this is sort of a three-part deal with the baseline Hillside Ordinance, the Ridgeline Protection Ordinance, and the Retaining Wall Ordinance. So this should be funded over 2 budget cycles, and the community plan would get much more expensive. It would be much more expensive to do the revised community plan. The Hollywood plan took them 18 years and cost millions and millions of dollars. So I once again would like to thank the planning department for their hard work in this area and hope that this will come to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Last but not least, representative from District 5, Sean Bayless. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sean Bayless, Planning and Land Use Deputy, Councilman Paul Koretz. Councilman Koretz put forward this motion a few months ago, recognizing that the two things: one, that the baseline hillside ordinance made great strides in protecting our hillsides, and also recognize that one of our greatest resources in the city of LA are our ridge lines. With that in mind, the councilman put forward the motion to kind of pick that ball up that I know has been carried before. We've asked that that the planning department has, one, done an outstanding job at putting forward a great report. We think the strategy that they've put in front of us is a good one, a sound one. It allows us to take several bites to kind of chop this up a little bit. It allows us to create the regulations and then apply them to a pilot program. We would ask that that be the Bel Air Beverly Crest community plan, and then allows those plans as they come up to be have those regulations folded into them. We would ask that that your committee, Councilman Reyes, put forward to council that that this be added to the planning department's work program, that the Bel Air Beverly Crest community plan be the pilot program, and that it be funded. Now, we all know that there are economic issues that are at play, and so, if need be, of course, we can always have a funding report done by the CLA and the CAO to come back here if you wanted to kind of bifurcate the process. But we do ask that should you see it fit, to move forward and have this placed on the work program, and to either fund or have the CLA or CAO and CAO work with planning department to come back and report on how we're going to fund it.
Okay, that's the end of the, thank you, Mr. Mendes. That's the end of the speakers, and given the challenges we have when 40% of the department being eliminated, we have to be very careful how we move forward in adding on to the stacks of work that's building up. One approach will be to request the CAO to report within 45 days relative to the fiscal impacts calculated by the planning department, to prepare a Ridgeline ordinance, and request the planning department to provide the CAO with any information needed to move forward. Is that something that we're comfortable with, planning director?
Yeah, I believe that would be a good approach, so we can have our financial wizards in the CAO and CLA's office assist us in making sure that our numbers are accurate. We do have a pretty good sense of what it would take from the work that staff has done over the years. But again, without the funding, it wouldn't be something we could just absorb in our work program because of the magnitude and how precise we have to be when we create these regulations to preserve people's property rights, but also allow for appropriate development in very sensitive ecological areas.
So if we went that way,
Councilman, we'll work with the CAO's office.
okay, are you comfortable with that, Councilmember? Okay, so that'll be the action of this committee, and seeking out that feedback, and hopefully report within 45 days, and we'll take it one step at a time. Thank you very much. Okay, so I request from the staff, only because we have building and safety here, and my understanding they're being stretched out, and there needs to be other places as well. If we can jump to item number 11, if we're comfortable with that. Are you okay with that, Councilmember? Yeah. We'll jump to item 11, and then we'll come back to the other items. Now, my understanding is that item 3, that Mr. Miller and Adrian Scott has elected to go with the consent and does not feel the need to speak, so we can move item 3 on consent. Okay, that'll be the action of this committee. That's a yes vote. All right, let's dive into number 11. Good afternoon. This is part 2, right?
Good afternoon, Sue Cheng, the City Planning Department. This case was continued from the prior plum meeting on November 15. At the end of plum meeting, at the last meeting, the committee requested the staff from Building and Safety to be present at the meeting. I'll give you a little bit snapshot of this case. This application is a variance application to allow over-in-height building, which was built in one of 21-unit condominium building at this location. The subject unit is in unit number 303. In year 2004, property owner of unit number 303 applied a building permit to construct the subject loft, which will result in cumulative height of 49 feet. Original building was built in 1985, I believe, and in 1989, city had a height district change in this area, so height limitation was restricted to 33 feet. However, since this building was constructed in 1985, based on non-conforming rights, this project, as long as it does not exceed more than 50% of floor area on the first floor, they could have a maximum 45 feet building height, which is their non-conforming right. Actually, building permit was issued in 2004. Construction was almost completed in beginning of 2005. But building department could not issue a certificate of occupancy because the height issues involved with this loft. After the last plum meeting, Building and Safety received a height survey submitted by the property owner of unit number 303. According to the height survey, the subject loft, the building height is a cumulative height of 48.98 feet. That does not include the skylight, which is 1.41 feet higher than the subject loft. Originally, this application was denied by the zoning administrator, but on appeal, the West LA APC approved this loft. So actually, the survey shows this loft is 8 to 10 inches higher than the existing parapet. So whether or not this committee considered this a significant the height increase, you can choose either the denial of the zoning administrator's decision or West LA approval of this loft. You have two sets of findings, which was made by the zoning administrator and the West LA APC. And if you have any further questions, the Building and Safety staff will be available for your questions.
Okay. Can we have Building and Safety here? I mean, I know they're here present. We just heard the overview of the case for the second time.
Okay.
And we understand that there were some discretion issues in terms of what's there now and versus what was believed to be permitted.
Yes.
Could you just explain to us what you see and what we have today from your point of view as Building and Safety?
Good afternoon. My name is Ifa Kashafi. I'm Chief of Engineering Bureau in charge of plan check and permitting. The permit for this project was issued in the West LA office in May 2004. The existing structure has 45 feet height to the top of the roof line, and it has about approximately 2 feet of the parapet line. When the permit was issued for that project, the permit clearly documents no change in existing height of building. Back of permit, it's indicated, and also the plot plan attached to the permit clearly shows that the height of the top of the loft shall not exceed the height of the parapet around the building. When the project completed, the survey of the height showed the project is 8 to 10 inches over the height of existing building. Per zoning code, height is defined as highest point of parapet to the lowest point of grade within 5 feet around the building. And considering that the overall constructed height for the top of the loft is about, I think, 8 to 10 inches over that. It depends which height of parapet you use, in the front adjacent to the unit or the one in the back.
in a non-conforming building, the parapet was the highest point.
Yes, it
And
has.
with the addition of this new construction on this one condominium, that ceiling was broken by 8 to 10 inches.
That is correct. We recognize the non-conforming right for this permit, and there was at one point like question of the queue condition, and that did not apply to the project. We recognize non-conforming right, and clearance on the permit was signed off by planning confirming that.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the staff? For the staff? Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Now, we had public comment previously. The new information that I'm hearing today, based on the two reports, is the fact that Building and Safety is confirming that the parapet was the top of the line in terms of its edge, the highest point, and that the new construction surpassed that by 8 to 10 inches, and that's the fact. And that's where we're at with this case. So we're going to have 1 minute public comment, and that 1 minute, I would hope to hear your opinion based on this new information that's been confirmed, based on the way Building and Safety assessed the site. So we can stay focused on that, because we've heard you before, and that hearing went almost 2 hours, because we want to make sure we heard all the facts from everybody. So this is a second run at this, and so we're going to keep it to 1 minute. If we can come forward. And Mr. City Attorney, do I go through the process again and go to the appellants first, or do I just go through the cards?
Well, I think it's probably better just to let the appellants, each side, but you don't have to let them, what amount of time did you let them have last time? 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Well, I gave them both a lot of flexibility on both sides and a lot of time, but I wanted to limit this to 1 minute.
Okay, well, each person speaking, you can have 1 minute, but when you're talking about letting the parties, the applicant,
specifically the appellant, as the appellant, do they speak first, even the second time?
I don't think it really matters, just as long as everybody gets their fair share.
Okay, then we'll keep it 1 minute, just to keep it fair. Okay, so who are the appellants here? Roberto, who are the appellants here?
The appellants, councilmen, are Judith Deutsch, and there's also several other people listed, Donna Ekstrom and Adriana Strahlberg, and they're part of a Hilltop Neighborhood Individuals.
Okay, so let's have the appellants come first. So we'll start with, I believe we have here Judith Deutsch and Ilsa Deutsch. I want to make sure you pronounce it right. Okay, Ilsa Deutsch and Judith Deutsch, and any more Deutsches?
Victor.
Okay, Victor Deutsch. Want to come on up? Please, 1 minute.
Okay. We're asking the city to enforce its own laws. We know that the loft does exceed the queue condition and the ordinance. And if a variance is given for this, it opens the way to higher buildings. You know, we have a beautiful little community. We do not want a Wilshire corridor. And we are very worried, and there are 12 of us here, and there were 12 of us here last week, that, you know, yes, the ordinance has been broken, but in addition to that, we've got the variance problem. And we have had other buildings in the area that have been requested at higher 4 stories and 6 stories, and we have clung to this ordinance as the way to prevent the changes in the general plan. Density in the area, we already are dealing with the Playa Vista traffic, and so I hope that, you know, you will conclude that no variances
Thank you, ma'am.
permitted.
Next speaker.
I'm Victor Deutsch, and I just want to concur with my daughter. that we support the issue.
Thank you, sir. And anyone else?
I'm Elsa Deutsch, Judy's mother, and I also support her.
Thank you, ma'am. That was the greatest speech ever today. Those 3 words. Okay. We have with us, is that everyone that's on the record for the appeal?
Yes, Councilman.
Okay. The Ekströms, are they on record?
Yes.
Okay, let's have them come up. Glenn and Donna Ekström.
Donna Ekström from Mar Vista, and we're in complete agreement with what you've just heard from Judith.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Glenn Ekstrom, and I am also in agreement with one addition, and that is that the purpose for those of us that do not live in the building, we're concerned about the variance setting a precedent for additional variances that'll make our neighborhood not worth it.
Okay. Thank you very much. So let's just go through the cards. I believe that covers everybody that's on record.
There was also an Adriana Strawberg, Councilman.
Adriana here? Okay. Okay. So that covers everybody on record. And anybody here for the applicant? The property owner?
And there were also an entity listed as Hilltop Neighborhood Individuals, Councilman?
Hilltop Neighborhood Individuals? Okay, okay. Okay, no problem. So let's have the folks who are the owners of the property come on up. And then we'll go through the rest of the cards. Just for the record, give us your name, please.
My name is David Schoppendonk. This is Marla Rubin. The information we're hearing today is totally new to us. We have 3 letters on file with from LADBS that we submitted to this Plum Committee stating that we did not mislead the committee for public and safety. I mean, now we're hearing that we've been trying to get a queue condition for a number of years, and now today we've been told that we no longer need to get a queue condition, and we're talking now 8 to 10 inches. I mean, we're totally lost. I mean, we've gone through this several times with the city. I mean, we're just lost.
We're just mystified. It's been such a difficult process going through all of this, and at no point did we ever mislead building and safety.
In the record from SIA and others.
The plans that we built are the plans that we submitted to building and safety are the plans that were built, that were approved multiple times. There were at least 8 inspections of our property during the construction. They saw it at the rough framing. They saw it after its construction. They came out yet again multiple times, and it always passed inspection. We have no idea why we weren't given our certificate of occupancy, because it's supposed to be that we're notified if it's not going to be given.
It actually says if you look at the record, it says that we were okay to issue the certificate of occupancy, and they were supposed to mail it to us. If they were not going to mail it to us or found an issue, they were supposed to contact us. They never did.
And now at this point we're down to 8 to 10 inches. I mean, this seems horrific that we're down to this, and we could end up losing our home over this. I mean, we're just begging that the totality of the circumstances be considered here. The APC certainly looked at all of them when they ruled 5-0 in our favor. They knew that we hadn't ever misled anybody through the process.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Please give us your name.
My name is Michael Kent. I'm the architect and the builder for the project. I wanted to state that that at no time does the project violate any Q condition because it's not a new structure and it's not a new building. It's built per plans. We measured it and verified that with the building inspector. I personally did. The plot plan specifically says that it's going to be raised to 3 feet. That was verified with the building inspector during all of the framing and final inspections. It was indeed inspected 8 times. I was there with the building inspector. I was there with the building inspector when he signed the final permit saying that it's done, the certificate of occupancy will be issued, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. This issue of the survey was not required at the time. This is a survey that was required in the most recent issues here with this variance. And so the issue of height was never an issue. And last but not least, there are 2 parapets that are involved here. There's a shorter front parapet and a taller adjacent parapet that's much larger that I believe that the building inspector interpreted as being the parapet, which we were below. Thank you.
Okay. Sir?
James Repking on behalf of the applicants. I think everyone would agree here today that the issue of height is a very complicated issue, and yet this has been debated for the last 2 years in terms of what happened, and today we're hearing yet another iteration of, what is the allowable height and what was allowed in the first place. But what's crystal clear from the record, what's crystal clear from the documents, the plans, is my client did absolutely nothing to mislead Building and Safety. And Building and Safety has submitted letters into the record saying that it was built in accordance with the plans and they weren't misled. Again, it was inspected 8 times. It was inspected when the framing went up initially. Building and Safety had ample opportunity to raise this issue if there were issues with height at the time. Again, I think this issue comes down to a matter of fundamental fairness and certainty in the city. When someone goes through all the right channels, obtains a building permit, and gets a final inspection, they're entitled that they can't have their permits revoked 5 years later based on an after-the-fact technicality.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. This is Building and Safety. Before we proceed with the other public comments, can I ask you one question? When there's reference to the parapet, and I just heard this now, the parapet that was being measured on those 11 inches, is it the shorter parapet or the taller one, or are they even, or there's a difference in height? Can you give me some perspective on that?
I have copy of the permits for everyone if you would like to see. The back of permit shows no change in the height, and the plan that was approved with what we showed, this is the section of the building, the top of the loft, you see it's in the same line with the adjacent parapet, and there is a note on the permit that no change in the height. When we asked for the survey of the height, the surveyor showed top of the parapet in different location. The one close to the loft, if you measure with that, the building, the top of the loft is 10 inches over that, but there is another point of parapet behind in further location. From that is 8 inches. So adjacent to the loft, the building is, the top of the loft is 10 inches over the parapet height.
So both parapets that are in place, regardless of which one
Worst
you refer
location
to, it still surpasses the height.
Yeah, passes the height.
Regardless of the parapet.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Overall 10 inches.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's keep going then. We have with us Christine Rosenzweig. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Christine Rosenzweig, 3463 Inglewood Boulevard, which is in the neighborhood. I support the appellants. The law is the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Simmons.
Hi, I'm Michael Simmons. I live at 3550 Ocean View Avenue. My home is directly due east of the property in question. From my upper bedroom window. I have a direct view of that structure, and it's with the dome, when the skylight is lit, that dome is glaring right in my bedroom window, and as it's previously said, the law is the law. I think there should be a way to maybe bring that down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mary Anshret. Mary Anshret.
I'm Mary Ann Sherritt. I live in the area, and I support what the others have said.
Thank you.
On the part of the appellant. Thank you.
Others being?
Others being Judy Deutsch, Michael Simmons, and the Ekstroms.
That's you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is one very clear. Yvonne Nelson, Marlene Alves, and Kent Alves.
Yvonne Nelson, 3665 Colonial Avenue, and I'm an area resident. I have been very concerned and have fought previous attempts to go beyond height limits, and so that's my main concern, and otherwise I agree with everything that Judith Deutsch has said.
Thank you, ma'am. Kent Elves, Marlene Elves, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Kent Alvis. I live on Grandview Boulevard in the area. I'm here to support Judy Deutsch's appeal, and I feel that there should not be a variance granted to raise heights in this sensitive area. I've also reviewed the materials, and it appears that there's 5 criteria to allow a variance, and I believe it is not supported, that the 5 reasons for a variance have not been demonstrated.
Thank you, Mr. Elvis. Good afternoon, ma'am.
I'm Marlene Elvis, and I live in the area, and I support Judy Deutsch and my husband. I've grown up in that area for over 50-some years, and I've seen bigger and bigger and taller buildings and things change, and I think that our area is very unique, and we need to support that. So thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. Marla Rubin, I believe it's Robina Rayer. I'm trying to read the writings. Good afternoon. We have Marla Rubin and Robina, I believe it is, at 3619 Keystone.
Hi, I'm Robina Royer. I live in the area, and I'm very concerned about this because there actually was, in 2009, there was an order to comply because there was no certificate of occupancy that had been signed off on by LADBS. So this issue has been going on for a very long time, and as others have said, the 5 criteria have not been met, most particularly economic hardship, which can never be a criteria. That's the only reason that the Planning Commission agreed to reverse Zoning Administrator Chang's decision. We have a 2010 case in our materials that cites that can never be a criteria. In addition, there's no geographic or special circumstance of the property that requires this loft. And in fact, this actually confers a special privilege to these people that other people will never be able to get. Or worse yet, it could open up the door for others to put in their own lofts based on this.
Thank you, ma'am. Our last speaker, I believe, is Marla Rubin. Marla, did you ever speak? Okay, she already spoke. I apologize. Council office. No, you already spoke. Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Whitney Blumenfeld here, representing Councilmember Bill Rosendahl. This is an unfortunate circumstance. We've been in this place once before. We've had a building already built. It was built over in height. It was not 5 inches. It was not 5 feet. It was somewhere right in the middle, like this property as well. The council member determined that anything above the height limit was not okay, and granting a variance was not okay, and it will be the same in this case as well. Thus, the council member is asking for the variance to not be granted.
Okay. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, so Roberto, given the direction from the council office and the issues in front of us, what's the proper...
Your action, Councilman, would be to grant the appeals and overturn the action of the West LA APC. And as such, you may want to ask the zoning administrator if the findings that she made need to be adopted.
Okay, so where's the staff? Councilmember, given the direction from the council office of the district, what are your tendencies?
No, we heard this item at a previous meeting, and having gotten my additional questions answered, I think I agree with the local council member's assessment and to grant the appeal and deny the variance. And we do need to adopt the findings from the zoning administrator, correct?
That is correct. This application was originally denied by the zoning administrator, so you inclined to grant this appeal, that means you are not approving this loft, going back to original decision of zoning administrator's denial. So your motion to be approve this appeal, because this appeal is from West LA's decision in overturning the zoning administrator's denial. So grant this appeal, adopt the findings made by the zoning administrator.
Okay, so that will be the action of this committee.
That's right.
Thank you very much. All right, Roberto, next one.
The next item, Councilman, is item 2. It's a planning department report requesting authority to execute 38 Mills Act historic property contracts.
Good afternoon, Lambert Giesinger with the Planning Department. The request today is to authorize the Director of Planning to execute 39 historical property contracts. Each contract has been approved as to form and legality by the City Attorney, and the Department has verified that each property is a qualified historic property, that engaging in these contracts will not cause the cumulative loss of property tax revenue to the City to exceed $1 million. However, we will be reporting back on that particular issue in 2 weeks to this committee, and that each applicant has submitted a rehabilitation scope of work for the property. And I know there's opposition on one application, which is 3522 Meyer Street. It may be the committee's desire to hear the opposition on that first, and then I'm happy to respond.
Yes, please. Question?
Thank you. We heard the item to lift the cap on the Mills Act. We have about $1 million cap that we've had, and we are now, after this action, at 93.6% capacity. Now, let's say we approve lifting the cap and we make some adjustments through the budget cycle for next year, July of 2012. How does that leave us with only about 7% or less?
Well, it would represent that even if we didn't lift the cap, we would have some flexibility in terms of approving contracts next year. I think if the ultimate decision by the council is to raise the cap, then my sense is that may be able to be accomplished prior to what is typically the end of May deadline for Mills Act applications. But my sense is we still have some flexibility to approve. This year we're looking at 39. My sense is, we may be looking at a similar number next year. This year we do have one property that's kind of exceptional relative to Lincoln Place Apartments in Venice, so that's certainly a much larger comprehensive project taking up some of the cap this year. But my sense is we still have capacity to move forward. But again, we need to engage in the discussion of where to raise the cap to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So before we go to the public comments, so the folks that submitted cards, they are reacting to what? What is it do you know?
They're in opposition to one particular property at 3522 Meyer Street. And again, I'm happy to respond to the concerns that they may want to raise, and I know the owner is here as well.
So we'll go through the cards and then we'll go back to you. All right. Okay, so we have with us Janelle Hayter. Yes. There's two.
I was just going to suggest it may be Amanda Seward and Hans Adamson who want to speak first.
Okay, we'll do that. All right. And we'll do the 2 minutes. Please give us your name and address.
My name is Hans Adamson. I'm a board member of the Gregory A. Mar Vista Tract HPOZ, a position I have held for the last 8 years. I'm a recipient of the Governor's Preservation Award, and I've also received the Los Angeles City HPOZ Preservation Award. I have successfully nominated 2 Richard Neutra homes in Los Angeles that are now cultural monuments. I worked for the last 10 years with my wife Amanda on the nomination and preservation of the Lincoln Place apartments in Venice. I'm very familiar with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation of historic resources, and I have owned a home and lived in the Gregory A. Mar Vista Tract for the last 18 years. Through the years of working on establishing the Mar Vista Tract HPOZ and during the work on the HPOZ board since, this is without doubt the most dangerous threat to the tract has faced. A program that was designed to promote preservation of historic architecture is now used as an incentive to destroy it. The real estate agents active in our neighborhood are already using as a selling argument that the buyer can easily be freed from the HPOZ restrictions if they instead sign up with the Millsite program that will allow them to do anything as long as the facade is still there. And the bonus is that they will get paid by the city to do it. The remodel of 3522 Meyer Street is not the historic rehabilitation that should be financed with taxpayer money. It is a luxury remodel where one of the few remaining original homes with a pristine interior was indiscriminately gutted to the studs, and every historic aspect of the interior was destroyed without the slightest consideration of the Secretary of Interior standards. A demolition of this kind would not be rewarded in the case of a green and green home. It should not be an incentive to destroy an original Schindler home. It should not be encouraged in a historic Neutra home and not in Gregory A. home. If you allow this Mills Act contract, you are not only wasting the taxpayers' money without getting anything for it, you're also creating an incentive to completely gut the historic interior of every Gregory A. Tract home. I would say it would be a compelling reason to scrap the Mills Act altogether.
Thank you very much.
Please say no.
All right, next speaker. Please give us your name and address.
All right, may I give you some pictures?
Sure. Pass it to the clerk there. There you go.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. My name is Amanda Seward, and I am here to speak in opposition of a Mills Act property tax reduction for 3522 Meyer. It should be stated that we understand that someone can do whatever they want to do with the inside of their home. That's not the problem. The problem here is the use of the Mills Act to fund it, especially at a time when the city needs money for street repairs, alleys, and sidewalks. This is a giveaway for a luxury remodel that should not be allowed. The Secretary of Interior standards in this case were not followed. The Secretary of Interior standards say that you preserve character-defining features of the home. Here, the interior was gutted. And if you look at the pictures, you see that you have on the left a photo by Julius Schulman in 1948 of the original kitchen, and you see when it was sold what it looked like from the pictures that the realtor took. It was completely intact, now all gone. Second picture, showing the same thing. All of these features were completely gutted. And the question is, are we going to allow, when we don't have much Mills Act money, the city doesn't have much money, Are you going to allow that money to be used for a remodel, not for preservation? I'm a preservationist. I'm in favor of preservation. I'm in favor of the Mills Act for preservation. But in this case, you're hurting preservation because now anybody can use the Mills Act and fund a gutting.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have quite a few more cards here, so...
Chairman Reyes, I'd like to respond, and then we can hand it off to the owner, and we also have our on-call consultant here as well who may want to speak on the issue. We took the concerns of Mr. Adamson and Ms. Seward very, very seriously, and we actually went out and re-inspected the property. The property had been inspected on September 1st, and we went out again a couple of weeks ago to look at the progress on site. As a result of that inspection, we have made some additional changes to the scope of work that the owner has proposed, which include retention of more of the original features of the kitchen, particularly the ribbed glass partition, which I think you can see in the photographs. We've made changes to the eave, fascia, and roof edge details to more closely match the original details on the property. We have required the retention and reuse of the living room bifold door, retention and reuse of the bedroom sliding door, all of which were original features, and the restoration of the fireplace and the wall around it. The Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, which guide the Mills Act contracts and what we do under our Cultural Heritage Ordinance, describe that retaining elements that are important to defining the overall historic character of the property is what's important. At issue here is the removal of cabinetry in the kitchens and bedrooms and their replacement with new materials that are in the character of the historic nature of the property and also in the same locations. Rehabilitation is defined as the act or process of making possible a compatible use for a property through repair, alterations, and additions while preserving those portions or features which convey its historic, cultural, and architectural significance. It is staff's position that the updating of cabinetry in this home in the same location as the original and in the same configuration complies with the standards. These changes do not radically alter the historic character of the property or prevent it from conveying its sense of history. Much to the credit of the owners, they are investing significantly in the future of this home by repairing wood framing due to dry rot and termites, adding building insulation where none ever existed, rewiring the entire house, doing a seismic retrofit, and installation of a solar-powered radiant heating system, and installing a new roof. So yes, a lot of work has been taking place on this property. We feel that it's consistent with the conditions of the contract and the standards.
That it is. You're saying it is.
That it is, correct.
Okay, go ahead. Go.
So our on-call consultant, Chattel Architecture, is present if there are any additional questions or more specific answers that they can provide.
And just generally, how much of a property tax savings did they realize through the Mills Act on this project?
What is estimated in their worksheet is about 50%.
How much?
In terms of dollars, that would be about $6,000 a year.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we're left without a chair here. Patty Schrader? No. I'm sorry, I can't read the writing on the last name. You don't wish to speak? No? Okay. Christy... No, don't wish to speak. Okay. Cindy Starrett.
Good afternoon, Council Member.
Okay.
We are all just here in support of the Lincoln Place application, so if there are any questions with regard to that, we'd be happy to address them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Janelle Hayter, same. Oh, okay. So you're actually here to speak on the 3522 Meyer. We
That's
have
right.
Janelle and Pontus Wolfers. Okay.
Hi, I'm Janelle Hyder, co-owner of 3522 Meyer Street. And together with my husband, Neither of us claimed to be an authority on architecture or historic preservation. Instead, we relied heavily on the city's expertise, namely on Mr. Lambert Giesinger and Mr. Robert Schettel. Both have been very involved and indispensable throughout our rehabilitation planning. Via multiple site visits, emails, and phone calls, they have offered numerous recommendations to best retain and preserve the historic character of our property according to the standards. And subsequently, we have and are in the midst of instituting all of these. Yet, despite this guidance from actual historic preservation architects, 3 members of our community are in dissent of our application. While we greatly respect others' views, we find this misguided. The Mills Act program exists for people like us and homes like ours. Under it, we would need to and are retaining interior character-defining features. However, under the HPOZ rules only, we could have completely destroyed all of these. Furthermore, instead of investing our time, energy, and resources in a new build or non-historic remodel, we consciously chose to buy a home in this tract with the hope of reinvigorating the house and, by extension, the neighborhood with 21st century materials and environmental sensitivity, all in the spirit of AIM. Clearly, it appears that the larger majority of voices in our community do support our application, as evidenced by a great number of emails sent to city staff over the last day. As of last count at 12:30 today, there were 13 emails from other Mar Vista Tract community members. Many of these emails represent more than one person. In closing, I very humbly quote one of these dear neighbors. Quote, "They exemplify what our neighborhood needs. Active, interested young people who understand our neighborhood, have invested in the preservation of our neighborhood, and are raising a new young family exactly the way intended by Gregory Ain. Certainly for Pontus and me, a Mills Act property contract for our home would greatly enhance our ability to live up to this ideal." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pontus Wilfors?
Hi, co-owner of 3522 Meyer Street. It's important to note that the 3 dissenters of our Mills Act application have actually never talked to us about a rehabilitation plan or how it has evolved throughout this process working with Mr. Giesinger and Mr. Chattel. Their conclusions are based on personal opinions and assumptions. We want to address a few specific concerns now. First, why did we remove the old plaster perceived as gutting it? It's a very simple answer to that. To preserve the structural integrity of the house for the future, that is, preserving the house. These houses are notoriously leaky to their flat roofs and thus over time prone to major damage, mainly termite and dry rot. By opening the walls, we were able to do significant repairs, overhauling the whole roof, repairing the wood framing, encapsulate molded areas, insulating the whole house, since there were none. We rewired the whole house, we seismically retrofitted the whole house by installing shear walls, and we installed a solar-powered floor radiant heating system. The second major concern is that of the kitchen. This kitchen was hardly original. There were some parts that were still original, and we estimate about a third of them. So we confirmed throughout this process with Mr. Giesinger and Mr. Chattel that it would be appropriate in our rehabilitation plan to install a modern kitchen, but in the footprint and style of the original kitchen, retaining original dimensions for the built-in table, hall, closet, floating cabinetry, and window partition. Finally, we are actually preserving and reinstalling the other disputed character-defining features that was brought up earlier, such as the sliding wall, the bifolding wall, and the fireplace. Hopefully this clarifies any misperceptions on our rehabilitation plan. I hope that you can today, providing the overwhelming support of our application, make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Randall DeLave?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Randall DeLave. I'm the next door neighbor to the applicant. I live at 3514 Meyer Street. Have lived next to the construction for quite a while. Having been in construction, I understand the process and have not been bothered by it one bit. In fact, I found it very interesting and educational. I am in total support of the application for the Mills Act. I have been in touch with several members of the community. I imagine some of those are some of the emails that have been received by the city this morning. I was just notified of this meeting last night, and I've been on the phone talking to people. I think more than half of the community, in my estimation, is in support of this project. Where all of the houses need some work. They have taken on this project and really started in the best way to preserve this home into the next century, if possible, if we don't have some cataclysm here. I really applaud their efforts, and I think many people in the community do. So, again, I pledge my support, and I think most of the community supports the applicant in this manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Kevin Bass. That's the last speaker. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, Commission members and Commission Chair. I'm here supporting Lincoln Place. I'm with the Painters and Allied Trades, and I've actually walked the property, and the property is dormant. There's nothing that's been taking place with this property for years. We have people there as we speak that are ready to do work, and two of the biggest issues that's facing Los Angeles and the rest of the country right now is job creation and housing, and this project can tackle both of those. Not only is this contractor ready to work yesterday, but he's bringing in people that we've had on the, as we say, on the bench for months, people that have been out of work, and these are the people that he's going to bring to this project to work. And I just don't want to see something else get in the way to slow this down. I've been with the council for about 3 years now, and I'm sure you've seen me speak on different projects. This is the first one that's actually coming to fruition. So for us to delay it and, to let this be delayed, I think would just be a travesty. So, I'm speaking on behalf of my several thousand members in Southern California supporting this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Thank you very much. So that concludes the speaker cards, and do you have any questions for the staff on this?
Questions. So some of the concerns that were raised, they're just, to me, raises broader questions about how we operate or manage the Mills Act program. Is there a pre-inspection to see what features are there, their level of deterioration, or what can we do? Which features we should save before the remodel happens, if a remodel happens, or they apply for the Mills Act and we go as our inspectors go and see it as is, or is there any rules on that?
This project, the 3522 Meyer Street, was somewhat in progress as the application came forward, but the owner did meet with us relative to some of the work that the HPOZ board was reviewing, and we had some discussion about the interior. I think that the concerns that were raised, we investigated. Yes, we're always concerned when there's a loss of original fabric. I think what's delicate about these houses is, yes, there are some existing built-ins from 1948, but many of which have been changed over time. Not always are they in their original pristine condition, and we have to look at the reality of when an owner is doing a major rehabilitation, is there the ability to upgrade kitchens and baths? Our normal response is that yes, there is, that not every bathroom and kitchen is worth saving. I think as a credit to the approach here is they're putting it back in its original configuration, but with new materials. I think it's absolutely in the spirit of what preservation is, as well as meeting the Secretary of the Interior standards. So yes, we're concerned when there's a loss of original historic fabric, but in this case we don't feel that it is detrimental to the overall
And when
property.
these properties apply for the Mills Act, are they required to already be registered as historical?
Yes, they have to be contributors to an HPOZ or listed as historic cultural monuments. So those are two requirements. This would be part of the Gregory Ain Mar Vista HPOZ.
It was in the HPOZ.
So it's considered a contributor to the HPOZ.
Okay. And so under our rules and regulations, you find that it does qualify for the Mills Act?
Yes, we think it's consistent with other Mills Act properties, other properties that are applying this year. And yes, each property is inspected once the application is received, and we have an on-call consultant who performs those inspections. Again, this property was caught a little bit in the middle of work taking place and things happening.
So we missed that opportunity from the get-go to say what was there before. We didn't see that. We didn't know what was worth saving, what was not worth saving. They did some remodel. We come in, but even after the remodel, there are some contributing features that you think are
yes, that are
fit
being
our
retained.
guidelines. Okay.
Yes, and the owner did provide me with some updated photographs, which I'll hand out, that show at least the current, as of this week, configuration.
And it's always a tough call, I would imagine, because as private property owners, you have the discretion to, number one, apply for it to be registered, or you're in an HPOZ zone. When you do the remodel, you make some judgment calls as to what you preserve, how you preserve it, and there are some consultants that have even difference of opinion as to what direction should go. In this case, we go back, look at the features there, what has been preserved, and see if it qualifies under those guidelines. But we may have missed an opportunity before the remodel to say, hey, no, you should preserve that or preserve that. But then again, that's not the purview of the Mills Act, correct? I mean, we can't tell them.
No, I think we're responding to what the program is at the time that it's applied for.
At the time that it's applied for.
Correct.
Yeah. So in this instance, whether there is a difference of opinion, what should have been saved or not been saved, or preserved more than it already has, under the Mills Act, when they apply, we go in and see what is. We can't do anything about what was there and, hey, you should have done this or should have done that. That's not under our purview.
Well, we're really gauging what the proposal is and what they're building now relative to the Secretary of the Interior standards and determining that it complies.
Yeah,
as
and it
opposed
does
to saying
comply.
that it doesn't, which would then potentially disqualify the application.
Okay. Thank you.
On your pro forma, you have 38 properties.
It should be 39. The report indicated 39.
Roberta, how many properties do you have in that pro forma?
Mr. Chair, there's 39. There was one that was submitted but prior to the agenda being released. So before the committee, there are 39.
Right. What happened, there were two sets that went to the mayor's office. One was the original 38, and there was one property that had some final discussions with the city attorney. That was the Lincoln Place property that was mentioned earlier. So that came separately from the mayor's office. So that may have been the confusion, but the final report from planning indicates 39.
So in your, yes, sir.
That in the spreadsheet, I noticed it said 38 contracts. That's why. There was a spreadsheet attached.
Then there were probably two spreadsheets. Maybe the one didn't get.
Okay.
I have an updated one here that I can submit.
And just to be clear for the record.
Okay.
In terms of the correspondence dated October 26, 2011, the Mills Act historical property contracts. In 2011, I had 38, and you say here, but now you're saying it's 39. And my question to you is, do you have a map of who has benefited from this program in the city? Is there a way to understand who has access to these programs and how do they participate? Do we have a map at least to show where in the city we're benefiting from this?
We haven't mapped it, but we do track each property by council district. So we can generate, based on council district and address, we can certainly generate a map.
Why don't you do that? Because I think one of the issues here is, I'm only speaking parochially here, but in my business cards I have home of the original suburbs. The first neighborhoods that start in the first ring of concentric circles around downtown. And so there's beautiful historic homes in Borough Heights, beautiful historic homes in Lincoln Heights and Highland Park, Echo Park, Angelino Heights. So I'm just curious, because we know the transitions that occur in the history of this great city, but the folks who have access, who have understanding of process, who can speak the language, how do we address that? And I would love to see this map, because it'll speak to how balanced we are. I don't know how balanced we are. I just don't know. Can you speak to that?
I can jump in. Ken Bernstein with Department of City Planning, Office of Historic Resources. I would just add, you raise an excellent point, and we would love to, first of all, partner with your office, all the council offices, assuming we have additional room under that cap in future years to continue to market the program, and we have done a great deal on that in recent years. But as we've looked at the distribution among council districts over the last several years, it has in fact been heavily focused on those original suburbs. It extends throughout the city, and we have HPOZs throughout the city from the harbor to the valley. But the highest concentration, in fact, have been in council districts such as Council District 1, Council District 10, and others in those original suburbs, West Adams, Angelino Heights, many of the neighborhoods within a several-mile radius of downtown, although we also have had some contracts in neighborhoods further to the west, such as Hancock Park and Windsor Square. But we've had a heavy concentration in those central city areas in the original suburbs, and we want to continue to market the program and target it particularly to low and moderate income homeowners that own many of those contributing structures in the HPOZs.
So I know there are like main streets in Northeast Valley. There's main streets in San Pedro. There's main streets in the outskirts of the city as well who developed historically. So it's not just one area, but I just want to understand the balance. So if we can do a map like that, that would be great. On the positive side, each one of my council colleagues has a website. They can have a link that lets owners and or constituents look at your respective council member's website and have a link to the application. And I could do it in 7 languages in one website, and that has access to the portal entries like the Alice Island of the West and some of our neighborhoods, and we just have all these different communities. So I just want to be opportunistic in that regard.
Very
so I
much like to
appreciate
work
that.
with you on that.
That'd be great. So at this stage, we have what's in front of us. These are the contracts, and you're willing to go back and assess the properties that were addressed, and you want to come back, or how do you want to proceed?
No, what the request is to have the committee recommend to the full council to direct the Director of Planning to authorize these contracts.
Okay. Roberto?
So you would approve the 39 contracts, and then you would request planning to prepare the map by council district of who has benefited from the Mills Act.
Okay. And then you have the issues of the property owners that came in. You had made a statement to reassess. I didn't catch that.
Yes, we did. We re-inspected the property, and we have added some additional conditions of approval to that contract.
Gotcha. So that way we are addressing their concerns.
These would be incorporated into the contract.
Okay. And within that language, we can move forward with 39.
Yes.
Okay. What are you going over that, Councilmember?
Yes.
Okay. So that will be the action of this committee. And what's next, Roberto?
Next item, Councilman, is item 7, which is a zone change in CD 12 for the construction of 5 new single-family units.
Chairman Reyes, members, I'm Daniel Scott, City Planning Department. The item before you is a zone change for the construction of 5 new single-family homes. The land use is minimum residential. It is consistent with the Granada Hills Community Plan. The zone change retains the K zoning for horse keeping. The case has 61 conditions of approval, including the project is required to dedicate and improve the public right-of-way and private streets along Shoshone Avenue and Highwater Road, connect to the existing and available sewer and drainage facilities, and provide adequate fire and traffic access. Additionally, the applicant is required to provide a 10-foot wide horse trail easement along the entire length of the property abutting Highwater Road and Shoshone Avenue as part of the project's improvement conditions. Staff recommends approval of the zone changed as conditioned.
Okay. There's one card on this item. Antonio Ramirez, are you still here?
In relation to your proposed construction of a 5 new single-family dwelling unit with the existing single-family dwelling pool and the shed as to be removed, I only approve the conditions if and only if first and foremost that your entire construction crew from top to bottom are military veterans, whether uniformed or ununiformed, active or inactive, and to any pilot who has knowledge of construction or thereabouts and their respective families, and all legal law-abiding citizens be employed in your proposed building in construction of these dwellings and piggyback to these job opportunities to only legal law-abiding citizens, that means no criminal illegal aliens, no freeloading gangbangers, and no Chango gangbangers in uniform, whether LAPD or Sheriff's Department. In sum, no cheap labor. So please, I admonish the city of Los Angeles, if they don't meet these conditions, then deny the application in its totality. Furthermore, do not rent or provide housing dwellings to any criminal illegal aliens or gangbangers, because they become breeding grounds to an explosive, violent criminal communities, i.e. Pacoima, Panorama, East LA, the safe haven sanctuaries for all criminal illegal aliens and gangbangers, with their accomplices, the East LA Sheriff's Department, who are aiding and abetting the criminal Latino world, but to first and rent out and assist and house and provide job opportunities to our beloved heroes in our U.S. military, who are our national sovereignty, and to all our pilots who are the flow of commerce, and their respective families. In sum, you will be blessed because they have a great vibrations and tenacious personalities. So again, let's not utilize cheap labor. As a Mexican American, I take pride in what I do. I don't speak out of my ass, and I'm not a butt kisser, but I damn well make sure that everyone follows the letter of the law in this country, especially in LA and LA County. And I thank you very much. I love you, pilots, and I love you, United States military. Kick ass.
Thank you, ma'am, but please regard your questions in terms of your statements and your verbiage to respect this body and the city. Thank you for your verbiage and the cooperation and being respectful in the terms that you use. Thank you. Okay, so our next item?
So Councilman, for number 7, you are approving the zone change.
Okay, that'll be the action of this committee?
Yes.
And then that takes us to item 10, which is an appeal by the applicant, and it relates to disapproval of a zone change in CD5 to demolish 3 apartment buildings.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Greg Shoup, City of Los Angeles Planning Department, representing the West LA
Hello, Mr. Shoup.
Planning Commission. Mr. Reyes,
did you bring your maps?
I'm back.
Okay.
The counter. This is my first case, so in 15
we'll
years.
Be gentle.
Before the plum, so give me a little break here. The West LA Area Planning Commission was very supportive of the zone change. It's taken down 14 older units and replacing it with 24 market rate units. The FAR increase from the RAS will greatly benefit, allowing a mix of 0 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedroom and into this new facility. The building fronts along Santa Monica, which is 200 feet wide, a major thoroughfare, a rapid red line bus, and has close proximity to the Century City specific plan area. They were not enamored of the increase in height, 57. I approved 53. They did not care for the height increase at all. That is allowed 50 feet in the RAS zone, up from 45, and the requested reduction in open space. Again, they were supportive. They wanted to continue the item. The hitch in the matter was that the applicant and neither the applicant or the property owner attended the hearing. I don't know if they thought my report was so well done that they didn't need to come, but they didn't show up. So we had no recourse because we could not continue the item because we didn't have anybody present. We couldn't reach them by phone. So after we huddled for about 10 minutes, we decided among staff and the clerk of the commission that it had to be denied because there was no other recourse.
Say that again?
The commission had to deny the request, the zone change, because we had no other decision. We could not continue it because they were running out of time. And so the prudent option was to deny it and let the applicant appeal it and work his issues out with the council office and the rest of the neighborhood, which I understand he has.
Okay, so on a technicality, we're here.
Technicality, we're here.
And as a result, we achieved a compromise.
Versus a consent.
Okay. So, all right. Thank you, sir. We do have with us Mark Kurtz. And since general public comment, would you like to come on up, sir? Mark Kurtz. Okay. Okay, Sean Bayless. I just want to get clear on the instructions here.
What about the appellant, Councilman, which is also the applicant?
Okay,
Did they speak?
Okay, I didn't have a card, that's why.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't my fault. It wasn't here. So, hands? Okay, sir.
Councilman Reyes and Councilman House. My name is Shahab Goetz, and I'm with Plus Architect representing the developer. And also, I wanted to apologize to the Planning Commission and the staff for the past 31 years that I've been doing this. I don't know, somehow we blanked out and we missed the Planning Commission.
The calendar page just fell off.
I mean, I don't know what
Something happened.
Maybe it's the beginning of Alzheimer, I don't know.
Okay. But let me ask you, are you in agreement with the recommendation of the staff?
We are in agreement with the recommendation of staff, yes. But even furthermore, what we did is we met with the City Council again, and at their recommendation, I modified the project. I do not require any more heights or open space reduction. And also I went back to the Westwood Homeowners Association, and we got their approval, which is part of the record. And also we have some conditions from the council office that also is part of the record, which we complied with. So,
okay, so we're all good. Are we okay, Mr. Shoup? So I want to make sure we're on the record. We just heard from the appellant.
I do represent the wishes of the Planning Commission,
okay.
But as a staff person, I'm very supportive of the corrections that he has made. We have a set of findings that if the committee does approve it, we can include those in the record for approval with the necessary T&Q conditions.
Okay. Okay. So, Roberto, we have the applicant and the appellant.
Right.
All at one.
All at once. So it would be a grant of the appeal?
Wait, time out. We got a couple more cards here.
Oh,
Sean
okay.
Bayless, come on, we got a chime in here, sir. And we also have a Mark Kurtz. Is Mark Kurtz here? I think he passed that up, so thank you, Mr. Kurtz. Mr. Bayless.
I'll make it quick. Sean Bayless, Councilman Paul Kurtz's office. We are in agreement with the proposal that's been put forth. Two of the concerns our office had were the same that the Area Planning Commission had, and those were the height and the open space. Both have been fixed. The height's been brought down. Open space has been added. We are in support of the project as proposed, and understand that those findings have been made and the Q conditions have been altered. So we approve of that. We support that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So can we wind this up? Are we ready? Let's. Can you hear us? Okay, let's keep going. I think the instructions are what?
It's a grant, Council, with the adoption of the revised findings from the appeal.
Okay.
So, but since, right.
Come on up to the microphone. You'll get used to this.
I believe the request before the committee would be to grant the appeal.
Right.
To allow the zone change to be changed from QC2 1VL-0 to TQ RAS4 1VL with the Q conditions that were included not only by the Planning Department, but also the Q conditions that the applicant appellant included, and including some voluntary conditions. We have to make those conditions voluntary. He has agreed to do certain things in addition to what we normally would require as far as improvements to the alley behind his property.
Okay.
And as to the findings?
And adopt the new findings as submitted into the clerk.
All right. And, okay, so we're on the same page now.
But
except for the councilman who's not at the table. So we're going to essentially hold this, and I can move to the next item. We'll have it come back. We'll repeat the instructions to make sure that the council member is in line with the recommendation. So what's our next item?
The next would be public comment, Councilman. You have no further items.
Okay, and we do have one speaker card for public comment. And that is... Antonio Ramirez. Come on in, Ms. Ramirez. Good afternoon, ma'am.
I implore the City of Los Angeles and County of Los Angeles to work in unison with the California Environmental Quality Act findings along with the Planning Department to set a benchmark standard of protection and safety for our Sheriff's Department and Los Angeles Police Department, the United States Coast Guard, and emergency crew who kick-ass chopper pilots. That means providing the most basic fundamental services for the acute high-performance aerial and rescue missions. That being effective on January the 1st, 2012, which includes a pay raise, a 2-week paid vacation with all expenses paid, a revised and full comprehensive medical, dental, vision, and life insurance with all in- and outpatient services inclusive, a full body and butt massage to avoid heart and leg thrombosis, a full acupuncture treatments, a group healing and therapy meetings, as well as travel to aviation and law enforcement and military protection, safety, and rescue techniques for our city residents. Lastly, on a structural enhancement, we must repair and upgrade the chopper launching pads, more lighting, more signage, and a more high-tech tower, and the landing pad for easier touchdowns with great airlift and to go airborne much more easily and readily. Thank you, pilots, for your public safety and all that you have done for the City of Los Angeles. Again, I am grateful, I am humbled, and I am privileged to have seen these high-performance pilots do a stupendous job. If you look up to the skies, they represent life, liberty, justice. Not any jackass can learn how to fly, but any jackass can dismiss them. Like my dad used to say, cualquier baboso puede reírse y burlarse, pero no cualquier baboso puede ver y decir, híjole, madre, caray, qué cosa tan estupendamente, preciosa. En dicho eso, gracias papá por todas sus instrucciones. Having said that, thank you very much. I love you, pilots.
Thank you, ma'am. Sounds like a good program. Mr. Rizar, can we close this? No, you need to express. Mr. City Attorney, does that count?
I think he can, I think he's almost done. Is he, he's coming.
That's on you and not me. Look at this guy. Okay, let's read the last instruction to make sure we got it on the record.
So it would be a grant of the appeal and adoption of the findings that were submitted as revised by the Planning Department.
And that's a yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's the action of this committee.
Thank you, Vinny.
Thank you, Mr. Shoup. That was a momentous occasion. The very first one. All right, folks. This meeting is adjourned.